These words are the thoughts that run through my head for those 10 seconds that I lose my focus when talking to my friends. And it goes like this. That something is going on, but something else clearly has a hold of me, possessing me like a demon. Not to sound crazy, but there's something crazy when being raised in such a perfect world like Suburbia, that the dissonance becomes prayers answered when hoping for a change, and that melancholic tone blasting from your teenage bedroom becomes the object of concern, rather than looking into its hidden meaning. Because at least they know how you're feeling when not being hidden behind those 1950s crew cuts or underneath those concrete ceilings. They told me that I was behind my own suffering. But in hindsight, I was just ahead of the curve. And that ghost of adolescence still haunts me in those moments when we're jumping to greener grass and my demeanor takes grasp of my heart and I start folding. From a cloud shaped like heaven to a half-collapsed building. And it leaves them wondering if they should ask what's wrong or just leave me be. And I'd be wandering down that desert road to try to get back those cloudy days that I knew in the Midwest before bringing them here to Southern California like an unlucky comic strip character. Hovering above my head like a dark halo or an unwanted memory. Well, I never wanted to look back at my life like there was no luck in my privileged existence. Like there was a reason to believe that God chose me to bring sense to such senselessness, but if you listen closely, you can still hear the echoes of what they praised at graduation, as if the superintendent at the very next ceremony wasn't going to spout the same delusional statements. Progression to the very same disillusioned spirit we ignored in the spaces between empty glasses. In the time between when the grown-ups got to talking and when they finally let one of us say what we all were thinking, and it all goes back to the same day. October 13th. The curve I was ahead of, and the death that still brings me grief from the car that crashed at the end of the concrete road I walked down every day before running away to that desert with a stop at Union Station. Well, I haven't been a child since 3 months before I turned 18, and it's taken me a decade to explain that. But I'll tell you something about growing up. It's really not as bad as it seems. If you let the wrinkles grow in your face, then they'll know the beauty in the things that you've seen. And if you let the grays take hold, then just tell the whole world that we're living in a black and white TV screen. But let them not forget that age and wisdom are not always the same thing. For I could tell you now that I've learned less in the last 10 years than the 10 seconds between the time they said my friend's name and the moment that they broke it with a thank you. When the only sounds you could hear were the creaking of the door and the footsteps from those who walked in late and the crying from those who couldn't help but notice the emptiness. Well, 10 years later, I thank you. For all the memories you gave me. For all the moments I spent listening to you share your thoughts, and I promise that since that day, I've become brave like you and told the whole world what it was like to walk the streets of Suburbia. Empty of people but full of parade floats, melting in the rain, parked on the sidelines as if waiting for the hearse to get through. I saw seniors dressed in black as if pre-gaming for the funeral. I saw smiles on the faces of those at the corner and heard cheers of our victory drown out the noises of the screeching tires on the last night we were all children. And maybe someday the cheering will return, but until then, we just drown ourselves in denial. And we hope that when the suffering comes, we can't hear it. Just like I prayed for rain since moving to sunny California, but I didn't have to pray for rain that day. We just let ourselves drown in hope for celebration. And at night, we hope to celebrate his life by drowning ourselves once again. And I think back to Union Station. The place where you asked me what it was like to leave, and with no hesitation, I told you that I've been gone since the very beginning. Stuck in my headphones listening to Jeff Rickley understand me better than anyone else. And I know that I'm still as full of anger as I was when we gathered at First Presbyterian. And I know that despite my many walks down Summit Drive, I'm still climbing for an understanding. And I know that my fingernails are still unclean from digging at the dirt at the side of the crash. And my hands are still bleeding from pulling out the shards of glass. We're still blinded from the flashbulbs and having to read all of the headlines of homecoming tragedies. And we're still wondering if the pain will go away with time. getting anxious as we hear our elders tell us that it does not. But if there's one thing that my years and my God have taught me, it's that I can forgive all the things that made me feel alone. Perhaps this could have happened anywhere to anyone, but I can never forgive myself for the silence. I can forgive my trespassers, but I can never forgive the silence. I can forgive myself for not saying goodbye, but I can never forgive the silence. I can forgive those who leave their friends to die, but I can never forgive the silence. I will forgive Suburbia. And I will forgive the silence.